do they grab any coding from the animation to put it in the blockchain? I know that you asked me not to talk. He asked me before we start, don't ask me to explain the technical stuff, but let's work on
no idea.
Let's work through this together. You give them the animation, but there's also code. Like, how do you make the animations? Through coding, or is it all just key points on After Effects?
Well, do you want to know the process of how I go through the animation?
As condensed as you can make it.
All right. Well.
Next time we hang around Chris Pan, we should talk to him a little bit more. So he did the My Intent bracelet.
Yeah, I know.
What's your My Intent word?
I don't have a My Intent bracelet.
Okay, but we're gonna have a word. What's the word gonna be for you?
I don't know. Power?
That's pretty obvious to find. You know what mine is?
What?
Bullseye.
I like that.
Yeah.
How do you find a word?
You just pick a word, bro. What do you mean? How do you find a word?
I feel like
Close your eyes and think of a word. You just thought of one. Power.
I just
Way to
went
go.
with power.
All right. So, hold on. Let me do this.
Manifestation.
Matteo Santoro.
Live.
You're on Checkitow. What up, man?
How's it going,
Welcome.
my friend?
I'm really happy I didn't wear the same. Like, so I have a similar shirt, like a jean shirtish looking thing with the pockets, and something inside me was like, nah. And if we were wearing the same shirt, I think I would get a lot of shit for it.
Well, the gods didn't want us to match today, I guess.
Well,
you know, it was in the air.
It was in the air. Move up a little bit to the microphone.
Oh, here we go.
You don't have to be all up in it. Just split the difference between before.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have you on. You know, we've been becoming friends lately. We met through an ayahuasca ceremony. To hear about that, way towards the end of the podcast, we'll get into that. But I checked out some of your art. You know, that you post on Instagram. I've been telling everybody you're one of the most talented guys that I know. A little bit of background on what Matteo's done. He's a film director. He's also an artist and an animator, graphic design, all that kind of stuff. You've done work for Alex Gray, which will probably connect to the ayahuasca stuff, so we'll move that a little later on. You directed a movie called Higher Power, where you did a lot of the special effects yourself, and it was really cool. And you wrote a graphic novel, which was called?
Breath of Bones.
Breath of Bone. We'll get into that.
With Steve Niles.
By the way, I left my copy at your house.
Oh, yeah.
But the next time I see you, I have a copy. I should have done it today. I have a copy of my book, Fever, and then I'm going to give you a copy of that, and then I get the graphic novel copy. And, you know, you're working on a bunch of different things, but the reason I wanted to have you in is because I'm really interested in NFTs, right? We had an artist that came in not too long ago, Asimov Art. I really hope I got it right. I'm looking at my phone. Should I look it up? No, he'll. And everybody's interested in what NFTs are, and you have a lot of work going on with NFTs. You know, as an artist, but you're also, you know, into the technical animation and all that kind of stuff. So you're working with like fine artists to turn their art into NFTs. One of which is Soey Milk, who's an amazing artist. I follow her on Instagram now, and you're going to be doing a drop with her. How'd you get into the NFT game? Like when they first explained it to you, were you like, okay, I think I get it, but like I'm into animation, so this is my jam?
I got into it because of Alex, actually.
Alex Gray.
Yeah. Him and I worked on the last Tool album cover together. So I took his painting and adapted it into like 3D space and all the characters and weird psychedelic imagery. And I basically have to kind of figure out how to take his oil painting and make it feel like this realistic world. And I did that for the album cover. We actually have this whole, like when you open the album cover, there's a little video screen in there and everything. It plays like, I think like a 10-minute long loop. It's a strange, trippy little animation. And it went over really well. And Alex and I just, we hit it off as, you know, artists, like communicate really well. I think I have the ability to kind of see things in that kind of psychedelic realm. And because I'm an artist, I can kind of bring it forth using my hands in a similar way as him, but it's a digital approach, I guess. But yeah, Alex, after we finished the Tool project, he had an opportunity to work on an NFT to adapt a couple of his paintings, and he called me up and was like, "Hey, we need to get these paintings adapted."
Have you already done those?
I already finished those. We dropped them like, I don't know, a couple months ago, 5 months ago maybe.
Okay, so so how did you link up with Soey Milk to do her NFTs?
Okay, so after I finished Alex's thing, it did really well. And then I was like, oh, this is a strange little avenue that I could carve out where I adapt fine art into the NFT space, you know, because there's a lot of people who are trying to do that, but I mean, they're kind of just applying cheap After Effects 2D animation to it. And what I've been doing is working very closely in like a very intimate way with the artist and kind of reconstructing their work in a three-dimensional space. So I'm like sculpting everything out, and actually a lot of artists get really excited when they see their work that way, because I'm not gonna say it's like elevated, it's a different experience, you know what I mean? Like a whole different thing. Getting sidetracking here, but after I finished that, I reached out to Miles Johnson, who I'm a huge fan of. He's like he does these pencil sketches on Instagram. He's got a crazy amount of followers, and his work is really beautiful. It's like very dreamlike and in the realm of Alex Gray, but in its own, like, kind of in its own way. Yeah, I reached out to him because of the Alex thing. I was like, hey man, I know you're getting into the NFT game, and if you need somebody to adapt your stuff, and I actually put together a little test for him to see like what I could do. So I took one of his drawings and I dimensionalized it and sent it over, and he was blown away, and we ended up partnering up, and we did three NFTs together. And then after that, and that one did pretty well, and the response was great. I ended up hooking up with Soey.
Describe Soy Milk for some of the people who haven't looked her up yet on their phone.
She's a fine artist, painter, oil paint. She does these just absolutely beautiful, dreamlike, just oil paintings of different characters, women, and it's...
And spelled S-U-O-Y.
S-O-E-Y.
S-O-E-Y,
Yeah,
Milk,
so,
M-I-L.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And there's going to be a special event that I get to come to on Sunday.
Sunday.
This will air after. Yeah, this will air after. We'll drop this after, but it'll be fun. So when NFTs started popping up, like, do you feel they're a fad? Do you feel that they're a money laundering scheme, or do you really feel that, okay, this is the evolution of taking things,
Well, they're pros and cons to everything.
Okay.
I feel like, but the fact that it's giving artists a voice, and it's like a kind of boom in the art community.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm attracted to. I love that. You know what I mean? It's not like it's like these creatives are now having this chance to kind of create these epic moments.
Now, because you're making the animation, are you also making the code? Are you making the code that they sell?
No. That's for like, there are different websites that curate the NFTs. Like the one that I'm doing with Soey is at legend.art.
So you hand them is it a GIF? Like, is it a GIF? Is it like, what would you describe what you're making? An animation?
Yeah, it's an animation. Yeah.
Okay, so you're making an animation, and they grab any coding from the animation to put it in the blockchain? I know that you asked me not to talk. He asked me before we start, don't ask me to explain the technical stuff, but let's work on
I have no idea.
Let's work through this together. You give them the animation, but
Yeah.
there's also code. Like, how do you make the animations? Through coding, or is it all just key points on After Effects?
Well, do you want to know the process of how I go through the animation?
As condensed as you can make it.
All right. Well, I take the high. Well, I think it's kind of cool, actually,
Yeah.
especially for these adaptations.
Okay.
I take the high resolution scans, like of Soy's work, for example,
Right.
and I bring that flat image into 3D space, right? And then I will then sculpt a version of, like, let's say she has some beautiful woman in a pose. I'll then go and kind of actually in ZBrush, is the name of the program to get nerdy. I'll sculpt actually that pose, and then I use her actual texture from the painting, and I texturize the entire sculpture in 3D space using her painting. And then the other parts of the painting, like weird, flowers and stuff, I'll also like start to animate those and bring life to them, and then all of a sudden at that point I can bring a camera, like in this program called Cinema 4D. You can bring a camera into the scene that I created, and it's now I've now taken her 2D thing that was this beautiful 2D experience and created a 3D.
And you can actually see it from different angles.
you
That
can go-
wasn't meant to
Yeah,
be seen in
exactly.
a two-dimensional
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
So, as someone who's not that technical but has learned a little bit, so the people that are doing the crappy job, they just kind of like they just separate one line from the other, and they kind of do a little thing,
fire
and they
overlay,
and that's it.
But that's for if someone's going to adapt like
Right.
something 2D, they'll just kind of throw a little fire overlay or something. They kind of make people.
You're
feel
actually
like
making the 2D thing come to life, and there's the back of the head, and the
yeah,
side of the
yeah,
head,
yeah. And also the process is, like I said, it's an intimate process. Like I'm working with like Soey, and we're going over everything, and really kind of like I with oil painting specifically, like I really respect and admire people who bleed for their work. And you can see that in her work. You know, she puts in the hours, you know, she really does. And like with each brush stroke, you know, and I want to be able to, I don't want to take that cheap route of having this 2D effect thing. Like I want to be able to respect that craft and bleed for it as well, you know, and that's what I've been doing with like all these artists is like I'm respecting their work and trying to maintain the like spirit and integrity of what they tried to create because it's their canvas. And it's been an incredibly beautiful experience because it's not like a regular client. Like I've worked in visual effects, you know, like a bunch of Marvel movies, like Incredible Hulk and all that stuff. It's like, you know, you got your regular studio client or a commercial client, like some Honda commercial. When you're working with like a fine artist, you know, it's a whole other beast. Like having Alex Gray, you know, like having him. I remember this one moment when I was working on one of his NFTs, and it's like I have him on video conference, and at the same time I'm sculpting on my, you know, in ZBrush while he's kind of sculpting something at the same time, and we're talking.
But he's sculpting something
or
physically.
not sculpting, I'm sorry, painting at the same time, and physically painting, as in his studio in New York, and I got my thing, and we're talking about like concepts, and it was like hanging out with a Jedi master, you know what I mean, and just downloading a bunch of incredible wisdom. So I feel like every time I finish one of these projects with these artists, I'm coming out on the other end, like.
Well, you're getting the respect of the artist because I feel that those artists are actually like creating, and so when they see somebody kind of just like take something and do, again, I'm talking as a non-technical animator, you know, key points and overlays and just kind of like hit a button and then this happens and it kind of, and there you go. See, look, it's different, it's digital, it's kind of, whereas you're actually kind of like, you know, if I make a painting and then you're like, oh, I like that painting, I'm going to make a sculpture of that painting, respecting your work, but I'm going to create some work too that you can be like, holy shit, he's sculpting over here.
Yeah,
you know
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And then also there's the animation part of it. Like for Soey stuff, she has these flowers, a lot of flowers and floral kind of imagery in her paintings, and I brought those to life. And it requires like rigging inside of a program, and you know, the flowers blossom open this really cool way, and I have like leaves kind of floating by,
Right.
but it's like, you know, I'm really trying to make it something that feels like it's quality. There's a quality like experience.
Now, going back to like my little conspiracy theory about like why this is hitting so hard right now. You know, there's a whole crypto, you know, movement right
Aliens.
now.
It's from the aliens.
It is from the aliens. Well, we're aliens. Because we're gonna work back into the creative when we get into the psychedelic stuff because it relates to that. But from the NFT, you know, cultural moment and economic impact, who do you see getting into these things? Is it a bunch of crypto dudes that are living in Miami and Puerto Rico, you know, for tax haven types that are like, okay, let me try to like, you know, who are the buyers? You know, I know you can't really talk shit about these people because they're buying art from you, but
buyers.
But I mean, is it like crypto people? Is it like, you know, a bunch of like?
The thing about the buyers, a lot of them are anonymous.
Well, crypto people usually.
Yeah,
like
I mean that's the thing. I mean there are some people who are a little bit more open about it, but there are.
Is it less art world and more these financial types that are looking at this as an investment?
Some, you know, split. It's split. But I'm trying to cross the art world into it.
Can I look as your friend?
Yeah.
Can I start talking to you as your friend?
Yeah, of course.
Don't start doing cocaine with these guys.
Definitely not. Don't worry.
Please do not.
I don't like cocaine.
Good.
It's not my thing.
It's not conducive to art.
Yeah, not at all.
So you know what is conducive to art?
Cuts off the creative realm.
It lowers your vibration, your
Yeah.
frequency, and also what you perceive. So speaking of what influences art, ooh, I lost you there. We both have a spiritual path, and I've talked about this a lot on shows. There, you know, people here before they got tired of how often I brought it up to guests, but now it's like just fine. You know, this is something you talk about with everybody. Even when people that don't do ayahuasca, I'll tell them about it. We both have experience doing ayahuasca many times in our life, and we've sat together recently, and we met through a group of friends that are of that world. But we like to think of ourselves as spiritual, but also practical, right? Like you want to keep your one
you
foot on the ground.
Yeah, you don't want to be one of those guys who's just spiraling around, you know.
Now, you were obviously an amazing artist before you started doing psychedelics. Did you get into psychedelics because you wanted to be more creative or because you wanted to work on yourself? I mean, I'm assuming both to a certain degree, but what was the thing that led you into psychedelics?
I mean, I've always been attracted to the idea of peeling back the veil, you know, the curiosity of seeing what's behind all of this, you know, and the secrets of the universe. And you kind of, when I was younger, maybe just experimenting a little bit with that stuff and realizing that it's not just like as black and white as just this is good or this is bad, you know. And I think as a creative, bringing your brain into those states, it definitely helps. It helps you kind of tap into that dreamlike realm. I'm not saying all the time, because you can just become saturated and nothing comes out and it's just garbage. Like I like to work mostly sober for the most part, but every once in a while I think that like it's okay to, you know, smoke a joint and see where it goes, just to kind of find a different like perspective, I guess, on the thing you're working on.
So
but it's not like the, you know, the end all be all for me or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you went into that, you're the way that you're talking about like creativity and consciousness, right? Dreamlike realms. But at what point did it become about spirit and heart?
Wait, say it again. Sorry.
So when you're getting into these psychedelics,
Yeah.
when you're talking about like how you were influenced to do it in the beginning, you're
Yeah.
talking about like dream realms, and I'm thinking, okay, it's more about higher state of consciousness
Yeah.
and creativity and expanding the mind,
Right.
which is how I got into it when I was young.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it becomes also about spirit and
Yeah.
heart, things that I didn't necessarily think about when I was younger. So at what point for you did it become about like, you know,
Well, I
that?
think the ayahuasca thing, especially. I mean, it's like they always say, you know, it's like literally 2 years or 5 years of therapy all in one night, and it just comes up.
I saw you go through about 5 years of therapy last time we
I think it was about
sat.
10 years
Yeah.
of therapy last time we sat. Oh boy.
Can I just say one line? Because I don't want to, because it was a beautiful moment. And I thought it was beautiful. And I
Yeah.
felt I got very close to you, just, you know, being, you know, with you in that thing. But, you know, Matt is a very big guy with big energy, right? Well, there was a lot of people that were comfortable there, but there was one part where you're like, am I being loud? Sorry, guys, I know this is a sacred space.
I couldn't
And
hold it
we
in.
all laughed our ass off. Sorry, guys, I know this is a sacred space. And everyone's in their like journey. It was good. But anyway, those are fun, and it's beautiful moments. Like, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
so-
when I do ayahuasca, when I have done it, I feel like I've done it so many times that I've, in a way, like I kind of know when I'm on the ship and where I'm gonna go, and I know that like all the emotion and the turmoil is there and it's coming up, and it comes out, you know, comes out, and you can't really hold that. But I'm also I just don't care about like the ego side of it. I know that I'm, you know, have like the big energy or whatever, but I think like if you can allow yourself to be like naked,
Yeah.
in a way, that is when the medicine is actually doing the work. And after that session, I know that I kind of made a little bit of a scene in a way.
You're so funny. He's like, hey guys, that was good.
I mean, you know,
We were the right people to do that with, because
Yeah.
I
I wouldn't say it was the scene. Like the
No, it
cops
wasn't a
weren't
scene.
called.
It was, no.
I just
It was
kind
beautiful.
of I was emoting.
He needed a hug,
Yeah.
and he got a really long hug. We hugged him for
I'm
about
an
an hour and a
artist,
half.
all right?
Yeah,
you know,
are.
like
But I'll tell you what, for me was also needed. I needed someone like you, who I respect a lot, to go through that, because I go through it more in the beginning, and towards the end I feel like I want to be there for someone else.
you know.
You know, so
be the angel.
and somebody that I actually like and care about, not just like a random person that I'm not really no. But with you, it's like, oh, cool, man. I want to, cool. No, please. I'll hold space for you, and Stefan's holding space for you. Like, let go, and it was beautiful. We got something out of
But
it.
at the same time, it's like after it was done, I mean, for me, it's not even, whenever I do ayahuasca, it's not really even about the session. Like, I know when I go into the session, it's for the most part, there's a lot of pain there.
Big time.
Big time. And it's not like a fun drug. It's not like it's
not a party.
It's not a party. It's not an escape either. It's a
Right.
mirror. You know, like you're forced to look at whatever demons and things that you have going on inside yourself, and you have to face them and overcome it. And then after the session, that's when it's like, that's when it's really doing its thing. Like light as a feather. Like I still feel really incredible after that session. You know, even though it did look like on the surface I was in, I guess, pain and
Right. Well, it
but
was
deep
paint-
down, yeah, like
it was paint coming
It was
out.
paint coming out. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was
So,
actually like I was just like letting
release.
it
I
out.
mean,
Yeah,
that's
release,
what they
yeah.
call purging. And
Yeah,
people think
it was
sometimes
like
you
a purge.
vomit, sometimes you're
Yeah.
laughing, sometimes you're crying.
But I mean, yeah, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Going back to the art and connecting it with this, I thought it was so cool when you told me that you worked with Alex Gray, because Alex Gray is the seminal, well, I guess before him there was a few people that could be thought of, but really for our generation, I think coming under him there's Android Jones, who I'm really into, but Alex Gray is one of the seminal artists that really captures that space that you visit on ayahuasca, on DMT, on mushrooms, this space that a lot of us believe is the spiritual realm that your pineal gland is opening up to. Now, it's coming through the filter of your mind, so we all kind of see slightly different things, but there's some signatures that we all kind of tap into, that it's like, these are the things that are existing in these higher dimensions, and you can kind of sense them when you break open the pineal gland, which is what these DMT chemicals that we're drinking in ayahuasca do, right? Mm-hmm. And so Alex Gray really captures. So a lot of times for me, I'm seeing a lot of Alex Gray paintings, and it's not like I saw his paintings first going into it. No. Like they come to me, and then when I see his paintings, I'm like, wow. And then you read that he's very influenced by mushrooms and ayahuasca and all that stuff. Did you know? Had you done ayahuasca before you worked with him, or did you know a lot about him before you worked with him?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I was a huge Tool fan when I was a kid.
Oh, that's right, because most of the covers were Alex Gray paintings.
Yeah.
I was a huge Tool, by the way. I mean, God, Tool, Donna. I saw them live in the Pearl in Las Vegas, and I got to interview. Yeah, the reason I went is because I forget. I've done so many interviews at this time. I'm so old. Look at these gray hairs. That I actually interviewed them for a magazine. I didn't get to interview them face to face. I interviewed one of the fucking people on the band. By phone for a phone interview for Vegas magazine that I used to write for, and that's why I went up and I saw them at the Pearl. No opening band, just them.
Yeah.
So hard and awesome.
Yeah.
And so you were a Tool fan growing up, and then you got to do their covers?
Yeah, I mean, I worked on some music video stuff with them.
Which ones?
What the hell was the one? It was the animated one. Shit, I can't remember the name of it.
You've done a lot of stuff when you don't remember stuff that you
Yeah,
worked on with
yeah,
big
yeah.
bands. And how did you connect with them?
Was it Vicarious? That was
Okay.
it. Vicarious, yeah.
How did you connect with this band that you were fans of and a fan of, and now you're doing their...
When I was working in visual effects, I was at this place called Hydraulics, and they were actually going to do a bunch of VFX for this music video specifically, and I was like such a big fan of Tool back in the day, and I ended up, one of the guys from the company brought me to the meeting when I was younger, and I ended up like making this kind of like package design, and I was like, I'm just gonna do like a cool package design, like this is a cool opportunity to meet like some of my heroes, and show them I can do like package design stuff and just see what happens. And I showed it to Adam Jones, who is a good friend, and he was blown away by it, and kind of took me under his wing in a way, and taught me a lot about the art world, and
then he connects you with Alex Gray.
he connected me with Alex
Who
Gray.
else is your idol, so that we know who you're going to be working with next?
Yeah, right. It was weird. It was super weird. It was a strange full circle, but he's definitely a Jedi. That guy for sure.
Wow, man. I really understand. Like for me, also, just summing it up on psychedelics, and then I want to get into like pop culture stuff because I want to get into like some comic book stuff that I used to collect. But on the psychedelic stuff, when I first started doing ayahuasca, I also realized, because so many of the images, like the patterns, are very like old. Like I see Mesoamerican art, I see Egyptian hieroglyphics. Like they all kind of, I see where like ancient art comes from. It's the psychedelic experience human beings were having, whether they were picking up mushrooms or whether the human mind was at a stage where we didn't have so much external stuff that they could just tap into that on a daily basis. But that's what I'm seeing. When I've done DMT, I'm going through the pyramids. I'm seeing like, okay, this is. So a lot of art taps into the spiritual realm. The original art kind of comes into it. Now we have all this external stuff to go off of, but I really just think it's like, oh, okay, it becomes, you see the fabric of space and time itself, is alive, and these patterns, and so a lot of people say, I forgot which were some of the philosophers that said that the origin of space-time in this universe, in this reality, this 3D dimension that we're part of, is the geometry, meaning the shape is there first, not the mass that fills it. So shapes came before matter. Matter comes in shapes, Matter infills shapes. There's plutonic solids. There's basic shapes, and there's shapes that have a lot of power.
Right.
But geometry comes first. The geometry of the universe existed before the matter that filled it.
Right, yeah.
Are you following me?
I'm totally following you. And the vibration between all things, and we're connected.
String theory says that the basis of the universe is a string that, depending on what frequency it vibrates, is, and now they're smashing particles together, and they're like, well, it's actually fields, and the particles are like points, because you know how. There's a test that if you observe something, you can follow a particle go through a slit. But if you're not observing it, you see it recorded across all the slits because it's a wave.
Right.
It's a wave until you observe it. This is one of the reasons why spiritual people are like, that are into physics, are like, physics, there's evidence. It's circumstantial and it's very implied. It's not explicit, right?
Right.
But that there is a higher consciousness that we're all part of.
I'm waiting for the particle collider to just rip a hole in reality.
It might have already done that. Do you believe in the Mandela effect?
I mean, we'll see what happens.
Have you seen some of the? Do you want to go over, like?
I mean, those things are pretty science fiction,
I get it, but here's the thing, dude. Like, we're about the same age. Do you remember the Berenstain Bears?
Yeah, totally.
How do you spell Berenstain?
I have no idea. Don't ask me to spell anything in public. I'm an artist.
Oh my gosh! All right, going back. So you've worked on a bunch of Marvel films, and just when I realized who you were is when we were walking through that party in downtown at the Arts District, and all the nerds were walking up to you, like the coolest, goofy looking people, but they're like cool but goofy. You made a face like, hey, what? My people are nerds, but you say
I am a nerd.
You're
man.
a nerd.
Yeah.
But
I
I'm a
spent
nerd
most
too.
of my career behind a computer building dorky things.
And it takes a long time. Being an animator, it's like you're
not just animating, design, like concept art was kind of my main thing. Like I worked on like designing the Predator homeworld and alien weapons and all kinds of stuff like
always digitally, or do you ever work on physical pieces?
Yeah, I work on paper. You start on paper first. That's the foundation of it all, for sure.
So you've worked. What are some of the studios you've worked for?
I mean, did a lot of stuff for Marvel, like the Incredible Hulk, like Wolverine, X-Men.
What did you do on Incredible Hulk and X-Men?
Incredible Hulk, actually, I worked on concepts. I actually designed some Hulk concepts for the Edward Norton version.
His biceps?
His biceps, yeah.
Say yes?
Yeah, back in the day. Oh, and then also at the very end, I don't remember, spoiler alert, there's like a moment in that movie where there's... what happens? There's like a glacier comes apart, and behind the glacier you get to see like a little bit of Captain America in there, and I got to kind of do the matte painting for Captain America like inside of the ice. So it was like this, but they didn't have a design at the time for Captain America at all. So I actually went out and like got all this like kind of military stuff from a military surplus place, and I took a picture of myself like on the ground, like laid out and then painted kind of like a Captain America shield, and then put myself in the thing, and then I'm like kind of behind, but you can hardly even tell. It's just like they wanted it to kind of just allude to the fact that Captain America is inside the ice, because that's what happens in the comic book. He dorky stuff, but yeah,
I got a feeling you're gonna be inserting yourself on screen a lot more from now on, because people look. So we're at this party, and all the animators come up, and they look like they're animators, right? They're cool and they're fun, but and they're all walking up. Hey, you Matt Santoro, man! I saw your thing and this and whatever art piece and animation in that movie, and I saw and I'm like, oh, okay, this guy's like a guy in like the animation and design world.
I'm a dork first and foremost, I would say, yeah.
But you want to start putting yourself out there.
Yeah, well,
that's
that's what I'm doing right now.
Well,
right?
that's why you called me. You're like, dude, I gotta be on your podcast. And I'm like, yeah, but and he's like, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You're like, I'll act like Latino and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
You grew up in Boston.
Yeah, right outside of Boston. Yeah.
So I say this to people from Boston, and I usually mean it as an insult. For you, I actually mean this. You're the nicest person from Boston I've ever met in my life.
All right. Yeah. It's a salty edge that they get out over there.
Holy
I think it's
man.
the weather. It's the weather.
It's a sea salty edge.
Yeah,
it's a sea salt and vinegar chip is the Boston personality.
It's the Budweiser and the Red Sox and what the fuck you doing? Stop looking at me.
So you go back to Boston, and you got this hippie vibe now, this spiritual vibe. You're sitting on ayahuasca ceremonies, and you're doing all this spiritual stuff. Well, how do they react to that?
I mean, I don't know. I just try not to make eye contact. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I have beautiful people in Boston. It's just kind of an attitude thing, but it's just how it is.
I actually feel comfortable with people from Boston for that. Being from.
And my dad's a cop too, so I grew up around some interesting interesting scenarios.
Now you're friends with the lead singer of a band that I'm a fan of now called Three Teeth.
Oh, yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Would
we
you
grew
call
up
them
together.
industrial metal? How
Yeah.
would they describe themselves?
Industrial metal, I think. I hope. I think that's what it's called.
Kinda, sorta.
Lex. If it's not industrial metal, man, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Lex, what's Lex's last name?
Mincola. Alexis
Lex.
Mincola, yeah.
Dude, you guys have like Latin names. I could totally have you on.
Him and I grew up together, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really cool. He lived in Miami for a while, which was interesting because Miami's not really like a metal scene, and now
Yeah.
he's like this, this metal dude. Did they open up for Rammstein?
Yeah, totally. And he also opened up for Tool.
And wow.
Yeah.
And they're going on tour with who?
I don't know who they're going on tour. Right now, he's actually leaving on Monday.
Yeah, they're opening up for
I think I have
a
no
big
idea.
band. Let's see here.
This is what happens when, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in Boston and fill in the time while I look for this.
Well, I mean, what part of growing up in? I mean, I grew up right outside of Boston. It was
What
like a
was
little
Lex?
beach town.
Okay, what was the town?
It was called Cohasset.
What?
Cohasset.
I thought you said co-acid.
Yeah, I mean, kind of
Like, are we
co-acid.
taking the acid trip together?
Yeah,
we're
no,
co-acid
no.
trip.
It was a very small, quaint, very Cape Cod-esque, like beach town, I guess.
What was Lex growing up like? Did he have a mustache when he was 10?
Yeah, he was born with a mustache, actually.
Lex say the name again?
Mincola.
Say it, Lex Mincola. Dude, Three Teeth is baddest. Love the logo. Like, you can tell that you guys are all, because he's a graphic designer too, right?
Yeah, he's got a great eye. Yeah.
You guys, if I have a kid and they want to waste their time going to school and they're not going to be either a doctor or a lawyer, which are the only people aside from that, maybe engineers and rocket scientists, those are the only people that should be going to school. If they're not going to be those things, you're going to go to school, look, whatever you're going to be. You're going to study business. Now, you're going to be a business person, don't study business. You're going to study graphic design. Learn how to design and animate, because if you can make something visual on your computer, whatever you want to do with your life, it's going to help. Am I right or wrong on that?
I mean, it just depends on what you're trying to do, to be honest. It's getting easier and easier, too, to do the whole graphic design thing, which I think is kind of, cheapening it in a way.
Okay, so they have their tour dates here, but they don't say who they're opening up for. So if you go to Three Teeth, threeteeth.org, I love that they have a .org. You'll see who they're opening up. It's for a big band. It's not Corrosion of Conformity. It's Village of the Damned. Come on, help me out here.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Oh, fuck it. We'll have Lex come on sometime, and
Yeah,
he'll explain it at some point. Did you collect comic books as a kid?
Of course.
What were your favorite comic books?
I mean, I just loved. I guess I'm a classic. I love Superman. It's super dorky, but like when I was a kid, like
What were your top two? Give me your two main ones. Superman and what else?
Well, I mean, later,
Don't
like
tell
when I
me
was
Avengers.
when I was really young, it was like Superman. That's what I was
Okay,
saying. But
yeah,
then,
that's
like when
young.
I was very young.
Yeah.
Like, it was my introduction. You know,
Right.
the Richard Donner Superman
Okay.
changed my life. Even before the comic book thing, I like saw that movie when I was little and was like, oh my god. And then it was like it got into like the Tim Burton Batman and
Okay.
all that stuff.
But you're talking about movies.
Yeah,
Tell me-
movie
tell
stuff.
me
Like comic book,
books.
like I mean, I'm into like Neil Gaiman, like
Beautiful Sandman.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Sandman.
They can't
like-
adapt. When are they going to adapt that into a movie?
They're turning it into a series right now.
Live action?
Yeah. But he's very involved, I hear, and I'm sure. I mean, that guy's
He's a very unique personality.
also an incredible human being.
Controversial too. He speaks his mind. I love
which
him.
is good. I mean,
I try. Look, I have a bunch of Sandmans at my house. I try to read them. They're a little hard to follow because I never start from the beginning.
Yeah.
I imagine you were into like the Dark Horse comics
Yeah.
and the graphic novels.
Yeah, like in the '90s,
Yeah.
it was all those. It was like what was it? Was it like Image Comics? Right?
Image Comics,
Yeah,
right.
I was in all those.
That's Todd McFarlane. All
Yeah.
the artists
Spawn.
took over
Spawn, that was a
and
big one
Jim
in the
Lee,
90s, yeah.
my favorite. So I'll tell you my two favorite titles because I was really big into comic books and this is why I got into writing because I did read a lot as a kid, but it was mostly between like 7 and like 12. As soon as like 12 came around, I'm like I can't. From that point on, it's periodic graphic novels. To this day, I'll buy a graphic novel. You know what I'm saying? Every now and again. But I collected comic books from like 7 to 12. I have all of the X-Men from like. Because I went back, from like 87 to like 93, like all of them. Storm dying, and some of them are actually worth money. My favorite were the X-Men and Batman, and I'll tell you why I love those two. I liked Superman until I started reading the comic book, and it's two-dimensional for me. Spider-Man was kind of funny, but even it's like this is too quirky and cute, Hated Justice League and Avengers. Like the mainstream part of the fucking Marvel and DC universe, couldn't stand them. But X-Men at the time,
Yeah, X-Men was pretty awesome.
especially at that time,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they were outlaws, they
Yeah.
were mutants, people hated them.
I loved it.
There was
The
always
cartoon was
drama.
awesome,
They
though.
were hot chicks. Yeah, the original. There were hot chicks. Remember when Jim Lee used to draw the chicks
Yeah.
with the with the headlights?
Oh,
It was
yeah.
like what? But they were empowered girls too,
Yeah.
man. They kicked ass. It was X-Men was woke before woke was obnoxious.
Yeah.
Right? Storm was a leader. It was a black woman from Africa was one of the leaders. It was like half guys, half girls, but they never made a thing about it. It wasn't like feminist. No, it was just you just accept it. Of course, people are born mutants. Of course, if a chick can fly and can lift things up, she's gonna be badass. They were not accepted by other superheroes. They weren't an official.
Not just superheroes, but humans in general.
Humans hated them.
The humans didn't like them. There was like racism towards them. And,
The evil character Magneto was actually fighting for a good cause so that they would be accepted. So it's kind of weird. He also became a leader of them.
Right.
There was my favorite stretch of comic book history is there's two. One is the Dark Phoenix saga, which was seminal because they killed off their main character and she killed herself. And, spoiler alert. It was that was in the 70s. People didn't do that. And then the period that I got into when I was a little kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, where they were scattered. So it was the Chris Claremont, and then half the time the writer, and that's what made me want to be a writer. He's today one of the greatest American writers of all time was Chris Claremont. And then half the time he worked with Mark Silvestri, and then the second half was Jim Lee. That era. The X-Men were just scattered. They weren't like a unified team that fought villains. It was just a bunch of scattered.
I remember, Jim Lee, too, his artwork was so cool.
His
too,
covers.
Back in the day. I remember just getting those covers and looking at them at the comic book store. And just
I remember
obsessing
meeting him.
over every single
I'm like, oh, he's
page.
Asian. Because I'm like Jim Lee. I was thinking like a white guy.
And Todd McFarlane,
Todd McFarlane was huge too. And well,
Spawn's so cool.
Well, I liked the only time I liked Spider-Man was the Venom days
Yeah,
when he was wearing the
exactly,
suit.
me too. Yeah. And
my-
Carnage. I mean, they had
Yes.
the movie coming out, but yeah, back in the day, and the Carnage. When
I have a
first saw
friend
that,
who's an
so- so
artist
cool.
who's called Sauter, Sautizi. He's a graffiti artist. He's been hitting up all the Venom posters. Look at all the Venom billboards around town because he does like Venom style fonts.
Yeah.
It's really sick. And then really quick, because I know I've been dominating this part because I want to tell you about my comic book stuff. I never have anybody talk to about this.
I'm the guy.
Batman.
Yeah.
I like Batman. Why? He wasn't a superhero, and I liked him in the dark phase. The fucking when I got into it, I was a little kid, 8 years old. My first Batman comic book was the last part of Death in the Family when the Joker kills Robin. That was the dark stuff again with the
Or the
villain
Frank
of
Miller
like,
stuff. It's
the Frank
crazy.
Miller Year
Yeah,
One
yeah,
and
Year
the
One.
Dark Knight
Yeah, I
Returns.
mean, that stuff is crazy.
This
Yeah.
is like
what he did to Superman was pretty awesome.
well, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing, and then they copied
And the
that for
cultural significance of it.
big time, and it was adult. I mean, even there was a series I don't even remember, but there was Batman and Detective comic books, but then there was a third series, short-lived, that was The Dark Knight, and it was suggested for mature readers.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
and it was really like
Did you ever
dark
get
stuff.
into Lobos? Speaking of mature readers.
No, I guess that was a little towards the end, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. It's quirky, but just like ultra violent. And I
Yeah.
just remember just like really liking the violence when I was a kid because you never seen that in a comic book
Yeah.
before. But he would just like punch people's heads off. and
Right. Yeah.
He was like
yeah.
a motorcycle space. I don't even know what he did. He was just kind of a bad guy, but I always liked the artwork.
Well, when
It
I
was
grew
really
up,
dynamic.
when I grew out of the superhero stuff, I started getting into the Dark Horse Alien series. Remember Alien Genesis and then Aliens versus Predator?
Yeah. And it was
That was huge, and,
Yeah.
and I gave the backstory. That was really cool. Ooh. So
That's
go
right,
into that. So
Predator.
you got to work on a bunch of that stuff
Yeah.
for
I was
what?
a Predator voice for Alien vs. Predator 2. That's not a lie, yeah.
Oh, so you actually did
Yeah,
that?
that's not an impression, dude. That's the actual one.
No, do it again. Ready? Wow, you're the Predator voice. You're a big guy.
Which was,
I see you-
I mean, it was a total fluke situation, but I mean, I totally did it. Yeah.
Dude, you've lived an interesting life, bro.
Yeah, I was working on the movie, and I was just running around on set, like, doing the Predator voice because I thought it was funny. And they actually had, like, the Predator there, and I'm like, oh, my God. And it was, like, the first time I've ever been starstruck in my entire life when I saw the actual Predator, like, this 7-foot-tall dude in the makeup, and I was like, oh, my God, it's the real fucking Predator. And I would do the voice, and then, like, there was some kind of a thing where they needed Fox needed someone to do the Predator voice because like something happened with the contract with the original one. I don't remember what it was, and they ended up doing a lot of auditions for like a bunch of auditions for these people, and they couldn't find anybody who could nail it. And the directors, they were like, "Oh, we got this kid on set who can do the impression." And I went Disney and ended up getting the gig, which was so funny. I mean, I never really tell anybody about that, but it's a fun little party trick, I guess.
And you were a fan of the movies, I'm sure, growing
yeah,
up,
huge
and the
fan.
comic book Alien vs. Predator.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that you just need to become a fan of the next big thing that you want to be part of, dude. I guess the NFT things.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm doing it right now. I don't know if I'm a fan of it, but yeah.
Okay, all right, you're paying the bills.
Yeah. I like working with the artists. That part of it, I really am attracted to.
We're gonna wrap up. I wanted to talk. Maybe the next time we'll talk about your movie Higher Power, which you can check out, look it up. You did not only directed it, but you did most of the VFX.
Yeah.
And you, the one funny story.
My feature film. I did.
Sci-fi fantasy, right?
Yeah, it's a indie sci-fi film. I did. It took me almost 5 years of working on it by myself. I got distribution. It's on Hulu and Amazon Prime. It's like a
And you say that you got to close down the bridge in Boston because your dad's a cop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because when you're we had hardly any money to get that thing done, and I remember, I called my dad up and I was like, hey, is there any way that you can hook me up with some cop cars? And he was like, yeah, sure. And ended up going to Boston with some guys, and we shot a whole police chase out in they shut down this entire bridge for us, and like, hey, Charlie's kid's making a movie. And they were awesome. So shout out to the Quincy Police Department. I love you guys.
I love that. I love that accent. What's the last thing that I wanted to get? I wanted to wrap up on. Okay, what was I saying before that? Oh, just about you living in Mar Vista in Venice. You're part of that scene, huh?
What is that supposed to mean?
There's that social scene. There's that Abbott Kinney scene. You know
I
what
am
I'm
not
saying?
part of that scene.
Well, you kind of date girls from that scene.
I mean, well, they're around.
When are you gonna settle down, man?
When am I going to settle down?
Yeah.
I guess I got to find the right one. I don't know.
Or the right one needs to find you.
Yeah, we're going to see what
You know
happens.
what?
I'm focused on the career for right now. But
This is how it's going to happen for you and me. First of all, we're on the precipice. I feel it. This is why you and me are becoming friends. We're on the precipice of big things. Okay? And I know the big things are on the deck for you. So certain things I got to catch you up on are happening for me, including at this place. We're doing a lot of things. The right one is going to find us. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Did you see the guest that I had on before you came?
Oh, she was beautiful.
Costanza.
Yeah.
You guys can watch her episode because I'm going to probably premiere it before yours. Go
I
watch
can still
Scorpions.
see the hearts in your eyes.
I guessed your sign on the first
Oh,
try.
I'm sure you did.
Her face is a painting. You know what I'm saying? Her face is in motion.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
But enough about her. Thanks for being here, Matteo Santoro. Listen, dude, you're an amazing artist. People, where can people follow you on Instagram?
Matteo.c.santoro and Instagram, yeah.
And you got an amazing art up there. A lot of it is beautiful. A lot of it is dark. A lot of it is psychedelic. And you're working with a lot of big names. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do in that space. But I also can't wait to see what you're developing on, the cinematic side.
Oh, the next thing.
All right. Matteo, you've got to check it out.
I got checked it out?
You got to check it out.
Excellent.